When you actually do the inner work and you get to know your soul, you're going to attract your soul mate into your life, because you're not going to be looking for the superficial things that are actually just projections of what you've been seeking from your childhood, or what your parents taught you that you're supposed to be with, or what society has told you that you're supposed to be with. You're actually just going to attract a human being whose soul is a match for your soul. Welcome to Path to Alignment with Hungry Yogi. My name is Natalie, your host. I'm a trauma-informed life alignment coach, yoga teacher, and retreat facilitator. If you made it here, you are ready to awaken parts of your soul that have been waiting to be unleashed. We will cover any and all aspects of the human experience. We get open and vulnerable about life and cover the shadows of life as well as the light. I'm so grateful that your soul found its way here. And if you would like to go deeper into your personal development journey, book a free 30-minute alignment call with me to learn about having me as your personal life coach. All the links to learn about my offerings are in the description. Without further ado, let's get aligned. Hello, Path to Alignment fam. You are tuning in with me today on a cozy Sunday night from the comfort of my home, wearing some big t-shirt, just PJs. So if you're watching on YouTube right now or Spotify, you are just getting me on a raw, organic, authentic Sunday night after I've taught 4 Pilates classes, and I'm just sitting here. I was into a little bit of a workflow, and I was getting my week together and just getting my goals for the week lined up. And then I started getting a little inspired, and I started thinking about a topic that is basically a topic that I feel runs the world in many ways. It's one of the main topics in our human experience, in my opinion at least, but I think this is actually, if you look at what's on TV and all the things, this is definitely the topic. And that is the topic of romance and love and relationships and finding your soulmate and becoming the person that you want to attract, and anything related to love. So I was thinking about relationships and what it means to be in a healthy relationship. And my wheels just started turning. So I wanted to just turn on the mic and just record an episode. I wasn't planning on recording tonight. So I was just kind of like, you know what, let's just turn it on. I made a promise to my listeners that I was going to record a weekly episode, no matter what, even if it just is an audio episode, even if it's this right now without my whole fabrication of the lights and my little path to alignment sign and all the things, because I feel like finding that path of least resistance is what keeps us consistent. So anyways, that's why you're tuned in with me right now in my pajamas on a Sunday night. And I'm just excited to chat with you and to bring forth just some messages that were kind of coming through as I was making some cacao and I was thinking about life and relationships and the relationships that I've been in my life, and just how many things that I've experienced through relationships, how I've really gotten to know myself through relationships. I've gotten to know who I am, who I'm not. And relationships are just such a beautiful thing. And it's the theme, I think it's the theme of this life. And when I even say relationships are the theme of this life, I mean that in the most broad terms. Relationships romantically and relationships just in general, friendships, family ships, relationships with people that you work with, colleagues, school, all the things, right? So the reason relationships in general are a theme is because we get to know ourselves through relationships. We are all mirrors of each other. So we're constantly mirroring to one another who we are, who we're not, what we like, what we don't like. So everyone is kind of reflecting what you are, what you're not, and you're getting to see that through another being. You wouldn't know who you are if there was nobody else on this planet. Like if you were just dropped on this planet and it's just you, nothing else, you would have no way to understand who you are as a being, because there would be not much reflecting back who you are. And actually, of course, nature would be reflecting back a lot of things. Like you'd be able to learn a lot about yourself through nature and such, but there is nothing like human connection and what we are able to learn about ourselves through another human, right? And the reason that the topic of romance came into my mind is because romance is what shows us the deepest versions of ourselves. Yes, you can get to know yourself through friendships. Yes, you can get to know yourself through people at work. Just through like anybody that you meet, you can get to know yourself. But nothing goes to the depth, to the shadows, to the darkness, to the nitty gritty, to the parts of you that are hiding like romance does. Romance can bring out the best in a person. Romance can bring out the worst in a person. So this is the particular part that I was thinking about earlier, is how there's been so many times in relationships where parts of myself have come out that were super wounded, like really wounded versions of myself, especially before I started doing any personal development work. There was parts of me that were jealous, envious, controlling. Like there was so much in me that when I reflect back on my early 20s and of course teenage years, like teenage years are just a blur, but even just in my 20s. So I've shared with many of you guys, I was married. So when I was 20 years old, I got married. My marriage lasted about 4 years, got divorced. And at 24, 25, that's really when I started to discover myself. Like after that marriage, it was like it sent me into the depths of my darkness, of my shadows. And I had to really like question everything in my life. So there's something really beautiful in the process of finding love and the emotions that we get. So if you can even look at the general patterns of relationships, you fall in love. You start to feel all the things. The person that you're with seems like this perfect being, and it's like nothing could possibly be wrong in this relationship. This will last forever. Everything feels beautiful, butterflies, all the dopamine and serotonin and all the love hormones are being secreted when you're meeting a person and when you're falling for a person. So in that moment, it's really hard to actually see the shadows because all that there is in that moment is all this light that is coming through. After a few months, maybe 6 months, I don't know, we're not going to put a timeline on it. It's so different for everyone. But once that kind of initial phase of the relationship starts to simmer down, that's when the real relationship actually begins. So the first initial phases of a relationship, that is really just like there's like a filter that is there, and it's a beautiful filter and it feels so good. And there's a reason that most people don't last in relationships. One of them being that we are addicted to that initial feeling in a relationship, the feeling of the butterflies, the love. And I speak for myself in this. When I was younger, I was so addicted to that feeling. So I was never getting in relationships. When I was specifically in my teenage years, like early years, I was never getting in relationships because I didn't want to commit. Because committing meant that I no longer had to feel that beautiful initial feeling of falling for someone. So those initial, like, it's not fake, but it's definitely not the real rawness of being with somebody. So I was addicted to that feeling. Therefore, anytime that I would start falling for someone, I would always, this is something I would do when I was younger. I would say, I really like you, but I'm not in a place to commit right now. I'm not in a place to date right now. So I just want you to know that this is not going to go any further than this for now. And that was something I was repeating in cycles and cycles and cycles. Now, some may look at that and be like, okay, cool. You were living your life. You were dating around. You were getting to know yourself. Yes. And there was definitely a deeper rooted type of thing there. And it was that I wasn't just not ready to commit to anyone at all, not even myself, because committing to somebody meant now we're going to have to dive into the shadows of each other and actually get to know ourselves at a very deep level, because that's what relationships do for us. And at that time in my life, I was so traumatized. I was numbing constantly. Anything that I could numb with, I was grabbing. Any drug, I was drinking all the time. There was just, I was just numbing all of my emotions. So at a subconscious level, of course, the last thing I wanted was to get into a deeply committed relationship where I was going to have to look at my shadows and all the things. The one time when I was super young that I did get in a committed relationship, it was awful. All of the traumas were being presented, especially when we're young. Before your frontal lobe is developed, you can't even fully make decisions from an integrated place because you're not fully developed in that way. You don't know yourself yet. So when I was younger and I was getting in relationships, it was from a place of not knowing myself. And of course, they didn't know themselves yet because we were all young. So it was just a bunch of traumatized little beings that were just walking around with their traumas and bonding through their traumas, and then not knowing how to process the fact that, oh yeah, we are bonding through a trauma. And the thing is, this continues to happen cyclically until you choose to heal your traumas, until you choose to take a deeper look at yourself and see where the work needs to be done. So most people are still living in that teenage type of cycle where they haven't processed their traumas. Like, just because by 25 your frontal lobe technically develops, and that's where your ability to make decisions, that's where you're kind of more integrated in who you are as a person. But that doesn't mean that you just know everything now, that you're healed or anything. It doesn't mean that at all. You have to consciously choose to look at the parts of yourself that are needing work, the shadows, at the same time knowing that you are whole and complete, because you are whole and complete. But there's always more that we can look at. There's always ways to improve in anything that we're doing in our lives. So the thing is that most of humanity is living from a traumatized state. They are living from a filtered state, just like when they're teenagers, just like when they're kids, where they are allowing their traumas and all the things that they've been through in their lives to actually run their lives. And it takes something to snap you many times, something to like snap you out of that like cycle, because it's so hard to see it when you're in it. There's this analogy that I love where if you're walking in the forest, it's really hard to see the way out. Like, you're deeply in the forest, you're trying to find the way out, but you look everywhere and all you see is trees. But when you're out of that, like if you zoom out, then you're able to see everything. You're able to see the entire forest. You're able to see where all the exits are. But when we're in the forest, it's really hard to see. And most of us are living in the forest. We are living from a place of just like walking around lost, not knowing where to go, not knowing where the exit is. And sometimes it takes something to just almost honestly break you and snap you out of where you are, to make you zoom out and have to look at your entire life and be like, oh my gosh, that was what happened in my childhood that made me attract this relationship. When I was younger, this is what happened with my dad that made me believe this about myself. When I was a teenager, this is what happened to me that created this huge trauma that now I keep on attracting into my life. This limiting belief that was created when I was 10 years old because, I don't know, Frank from school told me that I just wasn't good enough at drawing. And then I made that a thing about myself, that I wasn't good enough. That wasn't really a story for me. I was a great artist, by the way. Y'all don't know that about me, but I draw. I don't draw much anymore, but I had a few drawings that were super cute. Side story, real quick. Drawing became my outlet when I was 15 years old, and I was caught at school smoking weed, and I was in just such a dark place in my life. And I wasn't 15. I think I was like 17. I was in a really dark place in my life. I got caught by the police smoking weed at school. I got suspended from school for a week, and I had to stay home, and I was just grounded. I didn't have anything to do. So I grabbed a notebook and I drew for hours. And if I find the picture, I'll put it right here, but it was this picture of an elephant. Anyways, and all that trauma was caused through relationships that caused me to want to numb myself for many, many years. So anyways, I tend to go on tangents, but I hope that this is supporting you in some way, shape, or form. But what I'm really trying to get at right there with that point is that most of humanity is living from this place of trauma bonding and staying in relationships that don't serve them, because they are just repeating patterns and cycles from their childhood, from what they saw with their parents, from what they didn't get with their parents. And it's just this cyclical thing that continues to happen until you have to choose to break that. And oftentimes life will make you have to break that. And that's what happened for me. When I finally decided to commit when I was 20, I said 20 earlier, 21 is when I got married. So when I finally decided to commit, that's where I got to see my shadows. So I really, really got to see how I was playing out relationship dynamics that I had seen in my life with jealousy, with trying to play the role of like the Latina, your typical Latina that gets really jealous really easily and controls and just plays those dynamics that you see like in if you know anything about the Latin culture. This is just kind of like your stereotypical Latina woman that you think is like the sassy woman that's just trying to like fight all the time. That was definitely me in many ways. And the person I was with was kind of the perfect trigger, the perfect mirror for that part of me to come out. It was the perfect mirror for the angry parts of me to come out. The person I was with was very reserved, more like quiet, had a lot of difficulty with expressing himself and would shut down and numb or like just completely dissociate. And that would bring out this like feisty, angry Latina in me that was just ready to be like, hey, and just like fight and yell and so many things, right? So I got to understand that about myself through that relationship, that was a part of me that needed healing because I was playing out roles in my life. It was just me copying things that I saw growing up and stuff. And after that relationship ended, and I started doing yoga and I started meditating and I started going inwards and doing my trauma work and just really, really getting to know myself. That is when I saw all the parts of myself that were playing out in that relationship that I no longer wanted to be subscribed to. So that's the beauty of relationships is you can unsubscribe from the ways that you show up in relationships. And the beauty of relationships not working out is that you get to see why they didn't work out. What part of myself attracted that into my life? What part of myself continued to allow that into my life? So that relationship ended in a really painful way. And it led me to have to really face my shadows. So, as I was saying, there's the phases of a relationship, right? So, that initial phase that I was talking about, that's like all the things are coming up and everything feels beautiful. And it's like, oh, yes, I love this person and I love everything. And then you get deeper into the shadow parts of each other once that kind of simmers down. And then you start to see the things that you don't really resonate with about the person, the things that make you really annoyed about that person. Because naturally, as human beings, we're going to have conflict, disagreements. That's going to happen in any relationship. And the reason that most people don't make it through that part of the relationship is because we are not actually facing ourselves. We are pointing fingers and blaming and playing the blaming game back to back to back without there being any awareness of like, how am I playing a role in this moment? Because action, reaction, when I act, the person will react, and then I react. And then that continues to be this back and forth game of action, reaction, 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 reaction. It takes one person in the relationship, or obviously both, to be like, no, we're not going to continue in this game of acting and reacting. But this is where you have to be super aware and mindful of how you're showing up in your life. And that's where the work comes in. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already doing the work to be better in your relationships, to become a better version of yourself. But it's really important to understand that the majority of people are not doing this work, and that the majority of people are living their lives from this blinded place, from a filtered place that they still haven't broken out of. So there's a lot of compassion for those people. And at the same time, understanding that everyone has to come to their own awakening, so per se, of life, of why they're doing what they're doing and how long are you going to continue to play this out. So I got to thinking about how much romance is sold in our society. It's like we want it so bad and we want to be loved so bad. The deepest desire for humans, and this is honestly like I believe this through and through. The deepest desire every single human has is the desire to be loved, to love and to be loved. The desire for love, I truly believe that's why we came here. And I think that the reason that we seek it through relationships, romantic relationships in particular, is because that is the deepest form of love. It's because that is not only the deepest form of love for another being, but it also is the deepest form of love for ourselves. We are seeking to learn to love ourselves, but we keep on seeking it outside of us. in how can I love another being? How can I commit to another being? And something beautiful that I've learned in the past few years is how can I love myself with so much depth that whatever being comes into my life, I am able to give my love to as I am still loving myself. We often forget about ourselves through romantic relationships. We feel the need to give the person all of ourselves, and then we forget that there is this whole being that needs to be loved, that is seeking love. So if you are falling into relationships that just continue to be these cycles of you seeking to be loved and seeking to be loved, I want you to ask yourself, are you even seeking to love yourself? Or are you just seeking love through another being? So like I was saying earlier, when we think about society, the majority of society is seeking love in all of the places. But the thing is that we're doing it from an unhealed place. So people are seeking love in any way that they can get it. And the most important part is learning to love yourself. Because once you love yourself, you will respect yourself enough to choose another being that also loves themselves so much that you can both bring into the relationship two whole beings. Right now, a lot of people are coming into relationships as half beings. Like, I just love myself this much, but this other person will complete that for me, and they'll fill the rest of the missing gap of love that I don't have for myself. When that person suddenly doesn't fill that gap for me, then I will once again feel not whole and complete. And I will continue to seek for another person to give me that love. The thing is, this person is also seeking that love. So they are also not whole and complete, and they are seeking love from another. And when you're not giving it to them, then they're going to continue to seek it and seek it. And it will forever be this like unfulfilled love. But when you can come into a relationship and you have done the work, you are already whole and complete, and you love yourself deeply, and you love the parts of yourself that have the shadows, and you've worked through the shadows, and you love just who you are. You love being in your own presence so much. Like, you don't care if you have to be with people all the time. You don't care if you're single for 6 months, for a year, because you are so whole and complete and fulfilled with yourself that bringing another person into the equation is literally just going to add onto what you already have created within you, rather than you seeking. Because when we're seeking, we're never going to get from another person everything that we are seeking, because everything that you are seeking is right here. It's in here. It's not out there. It's not out there. And you will forever feel unfulfilled and incomplete when you are asking of another person to give you what you are craving. So I can reflect back on in times in my life where I was seeking so desperately for attention, to be loved, to be seen, to be listened to be heard. But how in the world was I asking to be heard when I wasn't even listening to myself? When I wasn't even confident enough to speak my voice and to express myself, because I didn't believe that my voice was worthy of being heard. So I was seeking for this other person to listen to me. Are you listening to me? And always feeling like, oh, they're not listening to me. I'm not worthy of being heard. But that was a trauma that I needed to work through. That was something that I had to work through for myself, where going into my relationship now that I've been in for 2.5, almost 3 years, it was from a place of wholeness where I'm not seeking for the other person to hear me. I'm actually so confident and so in love with the way that I am now that I don't seek it. I don't really care for it. Like, yes, it's there, but I feel like when we are seeking something, we will never find it. It's like being in a forest. Like, I'm going to go back to the forest analogy. Seeking for validation, seeking for love, seeking to be seen, seeking to be heard. These are all things that you are able to give to yourself, but you are seeking them outside of you. So imagine being in a forest and you're standing in this forest, and it's like you are seeking for a tree, but your eyes are closed. But if you open your eyes, the trees are all around you. If you open your eyes and actually see yourself, you will understand that everything is already there, but you are looking for it in all of the wrong places. Just like walking through a forest looking for a tree, but your eyes are closed. So you're never going to see it. You're always going to be seeking, well, where is the tree? Where is the tree? I don't see the tree. Well, you don't see the tree because your eyes are closed. So you don't see that you are worthy of being seen, that you are worthy of being heard, that you are everything, that everything is already within you, that you are love, that you are light, that you have within you everything that you need. You don't see that because what are you doing? And this is actually the contrary of the tree analogy I just gave. Your eyes are open and you're looking everywhere else except for within. Except for within. The thing is, it is so hard to look within because when we look within, we have to face the parts of ourselves that we don't want to see, the parts of ourselves that we have been shoving down for so many years, because seeing that is going to unpack so many things. I've literally spoken to family members that have said to me, I will never go to therapy because there's so much in here that I don't even want to deal with all that. So I'm just going to keep living my life the way that I am. And that is how most people are living their lives because they're so scared to look within. So if you continue to look outside of you, you're never going to find what you are looking for. And I promise you that because you're avoiding what is in here. So when we are seeking relationships, something so important to ask yourself is, what am I seeking from this person? Or if you are in a relationship and you continue to ask this person for this particular thing, can you just hear me better? Can you just hear me better? Can you listen to me? What part of yourself is actually not listening to yourself? What part of yourself is actually neglecting you? That person is just mirroring to you what you need to work on. The part of yourself that you might be neglecting, the wounded part of your inner child that you maybe haven't faced yet. So every time that you are feeling hurt by the way someone else is showing up, an opportunity to look back within yourself and ask, well, what part of me am I actually neglecting that I'm seeking from this person? I just had a memory pop up. I'm going to try to say this in the most integrated way. I haven't talked too much about this relationship I was in, but after my marriage, I was in a relationship that I feel like, here's the thing. I don't regret anything that I've done in my life. I don't regret any relationship I've been in. I don't regret anything about it. But this relationship was the closest thing that I could have to like regretting something. I will say I got to know a lot about myself in this relationship, and I got to just really see myself in different ways and see like the parts of me that I was hiding. And I'm going to explain it to you. So after my marriage, I ended up in a relationship. It's like literally, it's like I landed in it. I was still working through a lot of my traumas, a lot of my things. And in a moment of loneliness, I fell into a relationship. It was actually when the pandemic started. I was completely alone. My family had just moved to Colombia, so I didn't have anyone in my physical life that I could go like see and hug and feel loved by. So I felt very lonely. There was a void that was there. Instead of me looking at that void and finding ways to fill it for myself, I allowed myself to land in a relationship that was 1000% not in alignment with me. Yes, there was parts of the human that were in alignment with me, that were supporting me, that were helping me with certain things, that were allowing me to see parts of myself that I hadn't seen, because nobody is all bad. Like, we all have light and dark. Nobody is all dark, and I truly believe that through and through. There is light in everybody. This person did highlight a lot of my own light, and I was able to do a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have done in that. I'm not going to give that much credit to this person. I would have ended up still doing the things that I'm doing now. But I think that relationships have the power to shift timelines. What I mean by shift timelines is sometimes all it takes is one person seeing you and seeing your potential and what you're capable of for you to be like, oh, okay, I think I'll step into that. For me, it was yoga. This person saw in me like, you'd be a great yoga teacher. So saw that in myself and I was like, oh, wow, I can be that. Not saying to give this person so much credit that I wouldn't have become a yoga teacher if it wasn't for this person. I was already on the path to that. But like I said, relationships have the ability to shift timelines because we're able to highlight things in ourselves or in each other that we may not have seen in that moment. But that relationship happened because I had a void. There was something that wanted to be filled. I had gotten out of my marriage. I don't even know how much time went on after, maybe not even a year after my marriage. I got into this relationship and I was 100% not in a place to be in a relationship. But again, I was sad, I was lonely, I was trying to fill a void, and I had this person in front of me that was seeking for my love, yearning for my love. I decided to get into that relationship. Even though my gut, I did not follow my gut feeling. My gut was always telling me this is not the relationship that you're supposed to be in right now. But there's a lesson in every choice that we make, no matter what. But there was a sign in that relationship from the very beginning of the relationship of abuse. So I haven't talked fully about this relationship before. I needed time, and I think a lot of time to really process what happened because it was very painful, and it was a very big moment of like, whoa, what the fuck did I just end up in? But from the beginning of that relationship, after the little kind of butterfly feelings were there, I realized that I settled in this relationship. And this person started showing signs of aggression and signs of being an abusive person. I saw the signs very early on, and I empathize with any woman or any man that sees the signs of a person and chooses to stay in it. Because I think that I've expressed about my childhood in past episodes, but I had an abusive father. My stepfather was the best man of my life. Like, love him so much. But my biological father was abusive to my mom, to my grandma, to my family members. He was a drug lord. He was a murderer. He was in jail multiple times. I say this lightly right now, but it's because I've told the story so many times, but it's definitely not like a light conversation. He was a very dark person. And like I said, there's light in everybody. He wasn't all dark, but definitely mostly dark. Darkness definitely overshadowed him. And the moment that I noticed aggression in this person that I started dating, I saw the signs, and I actually had a moment where I was like, oh no, I can't be with you. This person raised their voice at me, and like had just a very reactive energy that it was scary. I could feel the fear building up inside of me in this person. But I empathize so deeply with people that stay in relationships like this because I stayed in it for quite some time, like much longer than it needed to be. That was something that, like, in that moment was an opportunity for me to break a cycle, because that was a generational cycle right there. Like, oh, being with a man who's abusive, being with a man who will yell at you, being with a man who can potentially hit you. Okay, cycle being repeated right now. Noticed it and continued to stay in it. So I made a choice to stay in it. And in my subconscious, I could feel like all the time this like hypervigilance, this feeling of at any moment this person's going to pop, and it would happen all the time. It's like some time would go by, person would pop eventually. But the thing is that I was still going through a phase in my life where I was allowing myself to have so much compassion for a person that it was forgiving their mistakes to a fault, like to the point that it was putting me in danger. But because I was looking at, oh, well, this person is so traumatized and they had such a difficult childhood and their father was abusive or their mother was abusive, so that's why they're like this. So let me fix you. And this was another pattern that I had to break. So this relationship did teach me, like, there was patterns that I needed to break, because in my younger years, there was the inner healer in me that wanted to save people. There was a few times in my younger years that I ended up in friendships where the person needed like somebody to help them desperately. They were in a dangerous situation with their parents or in a dangerous situation in their lives, or they had so much darkness and trauma. But I always wanted to fix, to save, to be there, to rescue. And this relationship is what really brought that to light for me in the most extreme way. And here's the thing, I feel like the universe will give us those really extreme situations sometimes to really have to snap. because that was a cycle that I was going through and thinking like, I can save this person, I can save this person. And I couldn't save that person because you can only save yourself. And it has to be a choice that you make for yourself to save yourself. Nobody's going to freaking save you. You have to save yourself. It is your own responsibility. So any of my humans in here that are listening that tend to be the savior, the person that wants to take that person out of their misery, of their darkness, you need to understand you cannot take somebody out of their darkness and misery if that person is not choosing to do it. If that person is not making the absolute conscious choice to say, I need to change this about myself, or I need to do this or that, they will always continue to rely on you. A lot of times people, and this is not always, but a lot of people that have a lot of darkness can almost become energy vampires, and they will latch onto your light. Your light is what they are seeking so that they can come out of their darkness. But the thing is, they will continue to draw your light until you have no more light left in you. And that's what happened to me in this relationship. I was this bright light, and this person saw that in me. This person saw like, wow, she's illuminating, she's bright, she's happy. Here's the thing with me. And if you know me, you know this about me. No matter what situation I'm going through in my life, I will always find the light, and I will smile through it, and not in a toxic positivity type of way. I will be going through it. I will be experiencing it. I will be feeling it, and I will still smile. So there was this light that was in me that this person saw in me, and they were drawn to my light. But the part of them that was drawn to my light was their darkness and the things that they needed to work through. So in this relationship, I was a mirror for this person, for them to see their aggression, their anger, all the things that the dark parts of them were being illuminated by my light. So I think in this relationship, I was more of I guess a lesson for that person, because for me, it was definitely just draining and sucking the life out of me. And I was allowing it. I was watching it happen. Here's the thing. Here's why we stay in these relationships. The cost of leaving the relationship can feel more dreadful than staying in the relationship itself. Take a moment to absorb that. For me, the cost of leaving that relationship, and this was it's a perceived cost of leaving, because this wasn't actually true. But my perceived cost of leaving this relationship was, I'm going to be alone, or I'm going to be lonely. I'm not going to have anyone. My family's not here. I have nobody. So I'm going to be alone. Okay. So that was my perceived cost. So because this person was just presenting signs of aggression through like yelling, and it was getting intense, more and more intense through time, but it was yelling, and it was a lot of anger and lashing out. And then the apology and the I'm so sorry, right? That for me felt like, okay, I think I can bear this. This doesn't feel like the worst thing in the world right now. And this person seems to be doing the work. So let's just kind of stick around, and I can stay here. We're doing things that feel empowering. So let's stay here instead of leaving and then now being alone. And that just, I think that was what was keeping me there. So for most people, it's like the abuse, the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the cheating, whatever the person is doing is worth more than leaving and being alone, feeling like they'll never be loved again, feeling like they'll never find somebody in their lives, feeling like they're just not worthy of finding anyone else, you know? So there's this whole other side that is keeping the person from leaving. So I think that's where empathy really comes into play, when you have a friend or someone in your life that is continuing to choose a relationship that is just absolute shit for them. It's that this other side coming out of it is actually a higher cost for them than just staying in it, because they have this perception that is actually a false perception, but in their bodies and in their nervous system, it feels so true that they will never be loved, that they will never be seen, that they will never find somebody, that they will forever just be in misery. Or that if this person leaves me, now I'm going to have to face these parts of myself that I've been avoiding for so long. So let's just stay right here. Because if this person leaves me, this person that's been validating me and telling me that I'm beautiful, or telling me that, I don't know, that I won't amount to anything, it could be positive affirmations that they're giving you and feeding you, or negative, that once I leave this relationship, then who's going to tell me that? Then I'm going to have to tell myself that. But then for me to tell myself that I am amazing or that I'm beautiful and all these things, I'm going to have to actually do the work that's going to have me believe that that's actually true. So let's just stay right here, right? So in that topic of relationships, it's just so important to understand that there's a bigger cost sometimes of leaving the relationship than staying. And it just takes the person understanding like that this other side where they're perceiving all of these things, it's not actually as true as they believe it to be. So anyways, it took me being in that relationship for, I don't even know. It was definitely less than a year, but it was too long, like way too long. But at the same time, everything lasts the time that it's supposed to. I truly believe that at the same time. Like there was lessons that were continuing to be learned in that relationship for me that I had to come to a tipping point, unfortunately. And that tipping point was that person choking me and actually putting their hands on me. And it was absolutely traumatic. It was probably one of the most traumatic moments of my entire life. It triggered a very deep wound of my childhood that I absolutely had to look at. And I thought that I had already faced that wound throughout my years, but this relationship in particular absolutely highlighted the biggest wounds in my childhood possible through being an abusive human being. And I think I had to come to that tipping point, unfortunately, to understand I cannot save people. I cannot save people. People have to do their own work. And I am worthy of being alone. I don't have to be with this person. I don't have to put myself in relationships where I am not expressing my boundaries. I get to express my boundaries. I get to express myself. I get to say no when I want to say no. I get to do what I want to do. So this relationship taught me boundaries. I needed to learn boundaries. And unfortunately, even after the relationship ended, this person actually started stalking me and finding me and connecting with my family and just doing all sorts of things that were so triggering. So anyways, learned a lot about myself through that relationship, learned so much about holding boundaries. But really, the main message in this whole thing is we mirror each other. So whoever you are dating, whoever you end up with, mirrors the parts of you that need that inner work. And when you have a lot of inner work to do, like a lot, you are very likely to attract partners that are going to bring up like really intense things. So for me, that was one of those really intense things that needed to come up for me to heal, a childhood wound, for me to look at things like, y'all, when I tell you, and I'll probably tell this story with more depth later on, but I will never forget after that, I had the abusive attack where this person choked me and like really, really hurt me, laying down the next morning on my yoga mat, bawling my eyes out and feeling pain in the back of my neck and my head and just like feeling like the bruising in my neck. It would hurt to even lay down. My arms were hurting. The person grabbed my arms with all the force possible. And it was like, I could feel the tenderness in my arms. And it was honestly really fucking sad. Like it was a really fucking sad moment. And it was a moment where I really had to fucking lay there with myself and be like, how did you get to this point? How did you get to this point? And I feel that it really prepared me to express my boundaries with more firmness and to know my worth, to know that I never deserved to go through that. Nobody ever deserves to go through that. And there's the other part of me that very clearly understands why I went through that, why I went through that whole experience. I needed to be mirrored back the things that needed to be worked on, the things that I needed to heal. And you know, it's funny because I have thanked my ex-husband. This is going to sound weird, but I have thanked my ex-husband basically for cheating on me, because when this person cheated on me, it set me free. Like I had this very deep feeling like I was never going to leave that relationship. I was very much like stuck in the cycle and blinded, and something had to shift for me to be like, whoa. And I really believe that that really painful divorce and being cheated on led me into this really deep personal development journey where I had to look deep at my wounds and myself It sent me into this personal development journey that led me to being a teacher, that led me to having a podcast, that led me to become a trauma-informed coach, because I had to process so much of my own trauma through that pain and through that suffering so that I could hold space from a place of like really embodying that. So I have legitimately thanked my ex-husband for what he did because he set me free. That set me free. I set myself free. I also could have stayed in that relationship. There was like the person wanted to stay with me after the relationship ended, and the person wanted to keep trying because people suddenly have shifts when they mess up, and then they're like, actually no, like I do want to be with you, I'm sorry, right? Like that usually happens in relationships. And I honestly saw that for myself as a test, as like a test of, am I going to choose to be with a person who chose to cheat on me, who chose to go out of their way to, destroy the marriage, even though the marriage was already crumbling, but that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But the question was, am I going to choose to stay with this person? And the answer was no. The answer was, I'm going to choose myself. And that was a really hard thing to do. And at the same time, it felt like an absolute yes in my body. Like, I need to get out of this now, because if I stay in here, this is going to become a cycle. If I say yes to this person and allow this to continue on, it's going to happen again. It's very bound to happen again. So I've thanked this person for what they did, because it set me free. I have not thanked the other person for what they did, and I don't think I ever will. And this is where I'm at in my life right now. I think that we don't always have to forgive. I think that there's a very toxic thing around like forgiving the person, and there's a level of forgiveness that can happen for a person that hurts you to a very deep level. For this particular thing that happened, there was only a certain level of forgiveness that this person was going to get from me. And the forgiveness was really towards myself. So whenever you are abused in any way, so anyone that's ever been abused, whether you have been molested, sexually, physically abused, verbally abused, any sort of abuse that you have experienced in your life, you do not have to forgive that person. But you can forgive yourself for falling into that trap. You can forgive yourself for not valuing yourself enough to leave. You can forgive yourself for not expressing your boundaries and your needs when you needed to. You can forgive yourself for not leaving. You can forgive yourself for staying in that. You can forgive yourself, because when you truly forgive yourself, you are less likely to fall into that again. Because truly forgiving yourself means not just I forgive myself, but it means I forgive myself and I'm willing to do the work to never fall into something like that again. So just wanted to drop that message in here about forgiveness, because I think that there's often a very toxic message about forgiveness, and this is simply just not what I believe in this moment. Maybe there's some growth that needs to happen for me to really integrate this belief. I think that you can forgive someone. Like, I have forgiven my father, but he will never hear from me again. My biological father will never hear from me again. I have forgiven and I have given chances, and that's just something like from the bottom of my heart, I have given the forgiveness that I could give. But that doesn't mean when you forgive someone that you need to open yourself up and receive them into your life again whatsoever. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can forgive someone to an extent and never see them again, and draw a boundary and block them and have a restraining order, whatever it is you need to do. Forgive and let them go. Forgive and goodbye. That's the forgiveness that needs to happen sometimes. Sometimes forgiveness can look like I forgive you and I welcome you into my life, or forgiveness can look like I forgive you and never fucking speak to me again politely. Thank you. Bye. Okay. So this is probably the most I've shared on this message, and I will probably share more in the future, but this is just something that came up, and I remember when it first happened, like during the time that it happened, and then later on, I still just wasn't ready to talk about it, and I think that we will start to express things and talk about things when we've processed them enough, when we have forgiven ourselves and really integrated the message into our hearts, so that we can express from a place of like, not this heaviness, not this anger. Like, when I even express this story, there's actually no anger anymore. I think like a year ago, there was still a lot of anger, and it was like a very jam-packed story and emotions around it. Now it's just like okay, this is something that happened in my life. It happened for me to learn this and this and this. I get to speak about it now. But I think sometimes we talk about things too soon. We put them out there really fast before we've had the time to really process them. And some things can take a few months to process, a few days. Some things can take many years to process. So honor your own process of when you allow yourself to put things out into the world, when you allow yourself to actually express something traumatic that happened to you. Because if you went through a really extreme trauma, every time you talk about it, you're bringing those emotions back up. So if you haven't processed those emotions, healed those emotions, then you're going to just continue to re-traumatize yourself and re-trigger the wound every time that you talk about it. So when you talk about something publicly, make sure that you have integrated what you've experienced, what you've gone through, so that you can actually speak about it from a calm place and not a place of like re-triggering wounds and then putting yourself right back into that place that you don't want to be in. So anyways, I hope this message finds you well. This was a great impromptu episode, and we went deep today, y'all. We went deep in this episode. And I'll just kind of finish this off by saying that when you are in a healthy relationship, you will know that it's a healthy relationship. Like, you will really know it in your body. But sometimes it does take going through the really unhealthy relationships, understanding that there is this darkness, to understand when there is light. It takes darkness to understand light. It takes light to understand darkness. So if you have been through relationships that have been very dark, that have been very unhealthy, that have brought out a lot of things, a lot of pain, just know that you will know in your body when you are in a healthy relationship. It will feel safe in your body. You will feel safe in the relationship. You will feel safe to express. You will feel safe to be. You will not be seeking from the other person the things that you're wanting in your life. You will not be seeking for attention, validation, love, because you will already be whole and complete within yourself. And because you are whole and complete within yourself, you will become a magnet for a person who is also whole and complete within themselves, that can come in and honestly give you everything that you were seeking to begin with, but you're not even going to be seeking it anymore because you're already going to have it within you. All it takes is for you to become. Like, I know that if you've heard a lot of personal development stuff, like, we talk a lot about become the person that you want to attract. And this is true. When you become the person that you are seeking, like if you're seeking love, if you're seeking attention, when you become the person that is giving yourself attention, when you become the person that is giving yourself love, that is empowering you, you are going to attract exactly what you are looking for. You won't even be looking for it, okay? Listen. You will not be looking. And this is actually something I truly believe. When you find someone in your life, you will actually not even be looking. You will attract that person into your life. So if you are right now actively looking, well, where's my person? Where's my person? You're on Tinder. You're on, I don't even know all these dating apps. I've never had one before, but you're on all the dating apps and you're like, where is my person? This is the person I'm looking for. I'm seeking a person that gives me this. My love language is this, so I'm seeking this and all these things, right? You're seeking. You're not going to find. You're not. And you may find, you probably will find someone, but is it actually going to be the person that your soul is desiring to attract? Probably not. Because when we are looking and trying to find everywhere, it's because there's something in here that you are looking for within yourself that you are just scanning around for. The person that has a successful job, the person that has the money, that has the cars, okay, why are you seeking that to begin with? Is it because somebody when you were young told you, okay, you're supposed to find this type of person and we're going to validate you in the family if you find this type of man, this type of woman? Like, really get clear with yourself about, why am I even seeking this type of person to begin with? Like, what am I trying to fill with this person? And I think that when you can genuinely and honestly answer to yourself, I'm not actually trying to fill anything here. I'm just open to attracting that which is really meant for me. Final thing I'll say, you can have multiple soulmates in your life. And I believe when you find your soulmate, the person that is here to be the mate for your soul, be very mindful of if this person makes your soul actually light up. Like if they actually make your soul light up with so much joy, with inspiration, your soulmate will want you to evolve, just like you will want them to evolve. If you don't want each other to actually evolve and grow, you're not actually soulmates. Your soulmate wants you to grow and evolve because your soulmate is actually here to help your soul continue in its evolution and for you as a human to evolve so that your soul can shine. Evolution for the soul, the reason we come into this earth, and I believe this through and through, the reason we come into this earth is to allow our soul to shine. And when we find our soulmate, it's a person that allows your soul to shine and actually radiates so much light into your life that you continue to shine even brighter, and you radiate so much light into their life that they shine even brighter, and so much that your light just becomes one. That is your soulmate. Your soulmate is not this person that has these accolades and this job and that makes this much amount of money and that looks this way and has this type of hair and dresses this way and has this type of car and has this type of family. That's not necessarily your soulmate. That is the human mate that you're looking for. But when you actually do the inner work and you get to know your soul, you're going to attract your soul mate into your life because you're not going to be looking for the superficial things that are actually just projections of what you've been seeking from your childhood or what your parents taught you that you're supposed to be with or what society has told you that you're supposed to be with. You're actually just going to attract a human being whose soul is a match for your soul. So do the inner work so that you can get to know your soul, so that you get to know who you actually are at the core when you shed away all of these layers of what everyone has told you that you're supposed to be or who you're supposed to date. There are so many people out there looking for their soulmate, but they're confused. They're not looking for their soulmate. They're just looking for their human mate. Someone that matches their human accolades and their human boxes and all the things that everyone in society's told you that you're supposed to be with. That's what most humans are looking for. When you're looking for your soulmate, you need to get clear with yourself. Have I even gotten to know my soul? Like, do I actually know my soul? Do I know who I am? If I were to take away this human body, these clothes, this house, this car, this money, this job, who am I? Am I fulfilled with what's in here, or am I just fulfilled with what's out here? If the answer to that is, I don't know if I'm fulfilled with what's actually in here, get to know yourself in here. Because it's very likely if you're only fulfilled with these exterior material things that make you think that you have things figured out in a certain way, you're just going to attract whatever mirror of that is. You're just going to attract the material things and the material human that you're looking for. But then once you start to actually get to know each other at a deeper level, you're going to get to see each other's souls, and you may not like what's there because it's very likely that it's very deeply shadowed by a lot of traumas and a lot of things that haven't been worked through. Get to know your soul first. And how do we do that? Doing the inner work. Shedding away all the layers that are creating this exterior human situation going on and getting so deep, like peeling back an onion. It's like you're peeling back an onion. It's like the peeling back is like, okay, now I'm looking at my childhood and this is what happened in my childhood. You're peeling back. I'm looking at my teenage years. This is something that happened in my teenage years. You're peeling back. Okay, this is my family's beliefs, but are they my beliefs as well, or is it just because they told me to? Okay, you're peeling back. Maybe you're traveling the world and you're starting to see things and you're starting to understand the world in a different way. And then from that place, you're finding your soul. And then from that place, your soul will become a magnet for what you're looking for. And you won't be looking, you will be attracting. Okay? Love you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you for being a part of my life, of my community. I don't know all of you that are listening, and I wish I did. I wish I could see all of your faces and just like listen to your reactions or see how things resonate with you. But if you are listening, I would love for you to just let me know. Please leave a like, a comment, something, anything to let me know that you are here with me. And I really appreciate you guys. and I'll tune in with you shortly. Bye.